Welcome everyone to Press TV's news review program now, where we get in-depth in one of the day's top stories. And yet another bombing in Afghanistan. A blast tore through a mosque in the northern city of Kunduz. Taliban spokesman says the explosion left over 33 people dead and 43 others injured. There's been no claim of responsibility for this attack, which follows multiple blasts claimed by the Daesh Takfiri terrorist group in the country. The Taliban say they've arrested a Daesh member in connection with a Thursday bomb attack at a Shia mosque in Mossad Sharif. They say that he was the mastermind behind that deadly blast. Local sources say over 36 people were killed in the Mossad Sharif bombing. Now, on Thursday, Kunduz was also rocked in a similar attack where 4 people died there. Major cities in Afghanistan have been reeling from bomb attacks since the Taliban takeover in August 2021. Now joining us for the program is Mr. Tony Gosling, investigative journalist from Bristol, and Ian Williams, journalist and analyst and writer, joining us from New York. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to the program, I guess. And Tony, welcome to the program there, bud. So, Tony, your initial thoughts on these attacks, and when it comes to the Taliban providing, to Ian's point, security for the Shia community in Afghanistan. The last few days, we've seen multiple mosques and educational centers targeted, leaving dozens dead. Are we seeing incompetence to provide security by the Taliban, or something, do you think, more sinister? Your initial thoughts on this?
Well, look, the question is, who are these fanatics? Ian's quite rightly pointed out they are fanatics, but who are they? What is their motivation? Is it really this kind of idea that the Shia want to kill the Sunni want to kill the Shia? We had a very similar conflict over here in Northern Ireland in the latter part of the last century, called the Troubles, where supposedly that was all about Catholics wanting to kill Protestants and Protestants wanting to kill Catholics. But I can tell you, and I lived over there for a year, right on the border of Northern Ireland, which was called Bandit Country, and it was really nothing to do with the religion and the faith. What it was a practice ground for the army, where they were practicing urban warfare, and also it was an attempt to set these two religious communities against each other. Largely, it was actually faith that brought them together eventually and signed the Good Friday Agreement. So, I look at many of these so-called religious conflicts around the world as an attempt to create a religious conflict by other fanatics. In this case, almost certainly, I would say, the United States Central Intelligence Agency and their colleagues in MI6 and the Mossad. They are the ones that like to see these religions fighting each other. They think that this is a great idea to to keep the people down. And there are, of course, as people may know, some of your viewers may realize, there is a whole philosophical cult around starting religious wars, particularly evident down at the Al-Aqsa Mosque last weekend and during the week, where there is an attempt to try and get the Zionists fighting with the Palestinians and make out that it's a religious battle. Actually, the Jews that are behind that are not religious Jews, they're secular Jews for the large part, and if they say they're religious, they're fanatical. So there's a definite attempt to start these, and I think the Central Intelligence Agency, Western Intelligence Services, if you can call them services, they are basically using countries like Somalia, Afghanistan now as well. Now the official soldiers have all left to go and prepare to fight Russia in Europe, and Pakistan, countries like this. That is their playground. They like to set bombs off and to see if they can get one faction fighting another. And I think it's quite evident. For example, if you go down to Egypt back in 2010, I think it was, no, 2011, New Year's Eve, there was a horrific bombing at one of the Coptic Christian churches. And it was the time that the Muslim Brotherhood were taking over briefly. And it came out then through actually the British staff at the British Embassy. There were some people came to confess to them that they'd actually been working directly for Habib al-Adli, who was the Interior Minister for Mubarak. So they had actually planted the bombs themselves in the church to do exactly what I suggested, which was to try and get these various religious groups hating on each other, to create this kind of hatred of religion. And also, of course, it's an old tactic the British Empire have used in the past, which is divide and rule. So I think that's what's going on now in Afghanistan, is the Western intelligence services are using it as their playground to try and set one religious group off against another. I'm afraid that sort of thing actually just amuses them, because they hate people of faith and people of religion.
Thank you, Tony and Ian. It's wild Tony went in that into that narrative, because I was going to bring me to my third question, and my second question to you, Ian, is that do you think, to Tony's point, that this is somehow there are players involved that are trying to manufacture and perpetuate divisions in Afghanistan, and if so, to what end?
Discount very active role from the Western intelligence services, the famous oxymoron. I mean, they've washed their hands and they want to get out. The real issue here is for the last 20 or 30 years, they've provided cover for their own reasons for the Wahhabis from Saudi Arabia and the Emirates to pursue their sort of particular religious cultism. You know, the whole issue of 9/11 was basically the US had nodded because the Saudis went ahead and armed and financed these people. It's very well documented what they've been doing, and I don't know what the attitude of the MLB, the new the new crown prince of Saudi Arabia, is to these, but it's deep in Saudi society. There are people who have been paying for religious hate. I mean, that's the whole point of the Wahhabis. They are diehard Sunni in a particular way. They really do think the Shia are heretics, and they will pursue it. And yes, these divisions will be exploited by people politically. They always have been. You know, I've come from Liverpool, where we had Protestant Orange Lodges and Catholics and many others. I've seen sectarian battles across the world, and usually there's somebody exploiting them one way or the other for political purposes. And here there are people who are going to use this to try and overthrow the Taliban. The instability that they'll cause means that they can have a second go at the Taliban and use the Daesh forces to try and get it. It's a straightforward sort of power struggle inside Afghanistan with a huge religious component. I mean, I don't think we should discount it. These people really are hateful. They believe that it's okay to kill innocent civilians because they are heretics. We've had this before, you know, the Spanish Inquisition, amongst others. In the West, we've practiced this, and until quite recently, this type of hatred was about. So it's not something that's too surprising. These divisions are there and they're being exploited. I'm not sure that Western intelligence, so-called, has really got a dog in the fight now. Well, they keep a watching brief, I suspect, because if anything, they know that they want to be able to control the situation, and also, above all, make sure it doesn't spill over. Right. They've got enough on their plate at the moment over in the further north in Ukraine.
We also know. But Ian, we also know, and I'm going to put this last question to Tony. Tony, we also know that Western intelligence looked horrible in the last couple of years, and perhaps you could make the argument for the last 20 years in Afghanistan. They got out trying to save face. They weren't able to do that. Basically, they were embarrassed. Washington and its European allies, NATO to be exact. Do you think basically that, you know, giving an image, whether it be today, tomorrow, in a few months or a few years, that the Taliban could provide security in Afghanistan and run the country, would make them look even worse? So basically what I'm trying to say is that's just bad for the business of imperialism.
Well, I mean, the idea is divide and ruin. The idea is to keep these countries down. That's the point of what these intelligence services are doing. I think also, you know, you have to look at the role of these companies like XE or Blackwater, the mercenaries that have been sent in. Certainly it's been proven over in Somalia that that's exactly what's been going on. In fact, one of the, I think it was Al-Shabaab over there, leaders said, hey guys, when they started their movement off originally, the Central Intelligence Agency are over here and Blackwater are over here trying to infiltrate us. Well, you know what? A few months later, he was killed by a drone strike, that particular spokesman for Al-Shabaab. And they don't want people to know about this, you know. So they're giving the warnings to genuine groups on the ground, but these groups are then being co-opted, coerced, taken over, and used by, I believe quite clearly by the Western intelligence services actually being behind this, because they can provide logistical support through satellites, through intelligence, communications services, very sophisticated methods by which they can actually cause these very destructive attacks. And it's very, very difficult for anybody, let alone the Taliban, to know exactly what's going on when you're competing with one of the actual superpowers intelligence services who are trying to simply destabilize your country, and they get a kick. I mean, it's very much like the attacks on the weddings and the funerals and things like that. They get a kick out of killing people of faith, and I'm afraid that's where we are nowadays.
And we only have about 40 seconds left, Tony. To Ian's point, what if Western intelligence and Western governments have nothing to do with this whatsoever? Do you think the Taliban is capable of providing security for the Afghan people?
So are you asking me?
Yeah. 40 seconds.
I don't think. No. I don't. I mean, if they didn't have anything to do with it, the West didn't have anything to do with this attack, then it would be possible for the Taliban to be dealing with these people. But I'm afraid the infiltration methods and the disguises people use, the various tricks they can use, when they're backed by one of the massive superpowers like the United States satellite systems, the British, etc., then it's almost impossible to stop these attacks. In fact, these attacks have, I believe, been going on here in the West too. Things like the terrorist attacks here in the UK, lots of questions about things like the Manchester Arena bombing just before the 2017 election here, and strong implications that our own security services were complicit in allowing that attack to take place for political reasons. So, we need to keep a very, very close eye on our intelligence people, because they're totally unaccountable. Our MPs don't scrutinise them at all. They're a law unto themselves, and they seem to follow the law of the jungle.
Okay, we're actually out of time, but I see you shaking your head there, Ian. You want to give you 20 seconds, really quick, your final thoughts.
I think that once you get to religious fanaticism, then people will do evil things on their own, without being aided or spared on by Western intelligence. And I don't think Western intelligence has got a war against religion. There are atheists in this world, but not many of them in the CIA. Most of them are probably true believers in one form or other of Catholicism or Protestantism. So I don't think it's an anti-religious war that's going on. They're exploiting other people's deeply held religious beliefs. And these often turn murderous, as we know.
You guys, I really have to.
Yeah, they could definitely do with a dose of God at the CIA, definitely.
Stay safe, both of you. Always a pleasure checking with you both. Ian Williams out of New York and Tony Gosling there from Bristol. And viewers, that's a wrap. This segment of your Press TV's News Review program. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye for now.